Coaching in Session,
your exclusive destination for unparalleled personal and professional growth.
With your host, Michael Rearden.
Whether you choose to live within limits or break free, your mindset journey begins here.
I heard something interesting the other day, and it was on, I believe, the Dave Ramsey show. And he was talking about how people, just in general, can believe something and then they do it almost unconsciously. And one of the things that many people have been believing, or maybe have led to believe, is that when we change presidents, and many people said Trump is coming into office and he's going to make things better, he's going to lower gas prices and help heal inflation and lower interest rates and make the housing market better. Well, even though this ambition is like really great, right? America is going to be better at the end of the day. It doesn't mean that one man is going to make all this happen, especially in one term being president. But the thing that happens that's magical, not so much of the man or the president, but what happens when people believe, when people can put hope in the system. And when there's hope and there's belief, things naturally occur. Because if you give yourself a mindset and you say, you know what, I'm going to give myself an attention of healing, of happiness, of fulfillment, of purpose, of mission, whatever you want to give yourself, you're going to start to naturally walk in that direction. If you are into firearms, you don't have to be, but if you are, they say you should face or have your body facing in the direction where your target is. Because if I'm looking backwards and I'm pointing the firearm in the opposite direction, I don't know where I'm aiming. However, if I have my body squared off to the target or where I'm trying to shoot, I have a higher likelihood to have that bullet go where I want it to go. We can think of it as a needle in a haystack, right? It's extremely hard to find it. The probability is low, but yet many people, they would dare to find it, right? They would dare to base luck on the system or dare to base luck on probability. And one of the things we don't learn in schools is about probability. Because if we did learn about probabilities, people wouldn't be playing the lotto. People wouldn't be waiting for another day to take action. They would take action today. Because I think of, just life in general. I'm going to be talking about this later on. The mind can be so powerful, but yet it can also be so fragile. And so today I said we should be looking at the mind in a different light, our mind as a superpower. And so I wrote this article here, The Power of the Mind, Unlocking Your Inner Superpower. And it talks about how your mind can be a powerful magnet for something good to happen in your life. I give some actionable steps for this to happen. And I'm going to be working with this type of mindset later on in the future, maybe have a program coming out, because it is and it creates the focus for the mind to be so much more primed to do something more meaningful. And basically what this article is going to give you is going to help you identify your goals. It's going to help you understand your limiting beliefs. It's going to help you realize your physical prowess, whether you can do something or if you can't. Your mindfulness, and the mindfulness is just going to be a blanket for what the mind is, dealing with gratitude and being present in the moment. Then we're going to be looking at how we practice our mindset, how we practice this idea that we can grow, that the superpower can develop. And then lastly, we're going to share what we have gained and what we have learned, because I've found that one of the reasons why I believe people are effective teachers is not because they can do the thing, is that they understand how to share the thing. So when I was learning to become a teacher, I learned from other teachers how to do the thing. But it wasn't until I started sharing what I learned that I began to refine what I had. And so we must hone our skills in a sense. We must hone our superpowers, our skills. They develop. Because not every one of us is going to be born as a genius in a sense, right? Where we're able to be a Michelangelo or to be a Van Gogh or to be this architect or this sculptor or, super smart person that's really good at math, like Albert Einstein. And we can look at their negativities, these individuals, but then we can look at what they have accomplished in their life. Many of them weren't worried about their failures. They were more worried about their successes and finding the solutions. But yet in our world today, and our mind is very different than it was before, we're so focused on the problem. We're not looking at the solutions. We're not looking at, okay, well, what is the probability of me winning? Because if the probability of me winning is not above 50%, then people start to lose hope. Because if it's 80%, all right, yeah, sure, most people can get on board. 70%, people start to fade. 60%, people are like, oh my goodness, I'm about to give up. And below 50%, I mean, people might hope and wish and dream, but if your mind is not, again, primed for something good to happen, unfortunately, it's not. Because the mind is more than just wishful thinking. Mindset is more than just being optimistic and saying, hey, I'm going to do what I have to do. Most people think that's what mindset is. Most people think, oh, I'm going to go get some mindset training and I'm going to go fix my mind. Well, sure, that's one step of the process. But the process is not only thinking about how can I fix myself? Because you can fix something and it breaks. How can you just be in constant repair, that you're always healing, that you're always flourishing? Many people, they start something, but they don't dare to finish. And if they do dare to finish, where are you going to be down the road a little bit? Some people, they give themselves an intention and they do really good because they are taking action. But unfortunately, they might have went the wrong way. So what do? Do we curse and do we say that the world is against us because we are not necessarily going or doing what we would hope? Well, I say we can give ourselves an intention of being not a superhero, but having a superpower. And the superpower, as I said, is the mind. In this article, I talk about the actionable steps, but I want to pinpoint a couple of things that I said early on. The goals, the limiting beliefs, and of course, the practicing of what we need to do. Now, these 6 steps essentially here are going to be what you need to do. And there's going to be people at different steps in life. Right now, maybe you're really good at your goals. Maybe you already dealt with your limiting beliefs, especially if you're listening to this podcast. You probably already started to look at your limiting beliefs and then either A, started to work on them, or B, started to get rid of them. Our idea of like practicing, this is something that I think many people, they falter in, because many people, they love the result. When I was learning how to play music, for example, I loved to play songs, right? But when I had to practice the chords and the scales and, it was not as enjoyable for me. So I wanted to practice the songs. I wanted to learn new songs and I wanted to play music and create something, right? I wanted to say, by the time I was done with my practice session, I was able to accomplish something, because if someone asked me to play a song and I played a couple of scales for them, they might have said, oh, great. Now, there is a way for you to use scales and you to create melodies with scales, especially in jazz, but it wasn't what my mind wanted. It wanted something more full. And many people, they want a life that is full. They want a life that they can say, you know what, I'm proud at the person I've become. I'm proud at the man I am, the husband I am, the wife I am, the girlfriend I am, the mom or dad or grandma, grandpa I am. But yet many people, they are still waiting for Superman to come save them. And I use Superman as just the idea of someone with power. It could be Wonder Woman if you want to be Wonder Woman, right? If we want to be specific with gender, right? We have to have that superpower in our mind. We have to be the hero of our story in a sense. Now, I don't necessarily like the hero's journey, but it is so true to how many people operate. They operate in the sense of, well, I have a goal. I have this idea of what I want, but most of this is going to be depicted by what society wants. And then so the limiting beliefs that start to come in your mind are going to be the insecurities that you get from others. And then you are going to antagonize them onto yourself. And I encourage you, if you have limited beliefs, to do the work today. But many people, they're going to throw the hardships and the rough patches, to the sideline, right? The things that are not going to bring about pleasure and joy. They're going to say, you know what, let me focus on that later. So they do. They focus on it later, but sometimes later never comes. So we need to be looking at, well, if I'm going to have this goal and I'm going to have this dream and I'm going to have this ambition, what ways can I operate in my day to make sure I get it? Some people, they do really well. Some people they struggle with. I know people who they would, be making quite a bit of money, and then something happens in their life, a hiccup, and then all of a sudden they fall into hardship, whether they're living on the street or barely scraping by, working in a dead-end job. And you have to ask yourself, how did we get here? Many people, when it comes to they have a hardship, the limiting beliefs start to creep in their mind and say, you know what, this is what it is. For example, my coaching, it's not the most affordable in the sense of people who want to get a bargain for coaching. If you want a bargain for coaching, of course, you can maybe check out another guest. Maybe they're, have a lower price. Maybe you can go to Fiverr or you can go to Upwork and you can find someone who's going to do it for pennies on the dollar. The reason why my coaching is the price it is because of how effective it is. And I would love to have my coaching. I would love for it to be free for everyone. The podcast is free for everyone, of course, so you can always tune in, get your coaching fix easy. But when I first started the business, I was charging $20, $25 an hour. And, people were, running like, this is the price that I feel most comfortable in. But comfort is not what we need when we want to change. We need adversity. We need something to say, hey, this better be worth it. I know Grant Cardone does this really well, right? People might feel as if like the $10,000 or whatever money they have to pay to be a part of his course or whatever is a bit much, right? Because they have families to feed and things like that. But Grant knows something that many people don't. You have to have skin in the game. You have to have some type of investment in something or in yourself. And you say, you know what, this is what I'm doing. Some people, they do an investment of going to school, right? They get $100,000, $200,000 in student loan debt. But the problem with that investment is that they don't necessarily see what they're investing, right? Not until they get their student loan bill in the mail when they are done graduating. They say, whoa, this is what I invested in, right? Some people now, they're debilitated in a sense of, I can't afford this. I can't do this. And maybe, hopefully not, you picked a career that you want to do for the rest of your life. And I know rest of life can be a long time. So many people, when it comes to getting a degree, they say, I got this degree, but I'm not going to utilize it how I should be, utilizing it. Because if you went to school for nursing and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't want to be a nurse anymore. I want to be a dental assistant. Okay. I mean, we could have did something different there, right? We could have said, okay, let's figure out what we want to do. And then we get very clear on what we want to do. And so I like to, help people, and depending on their mind, because some people are very realistic. And a superpower idea is very reminiscent of the runner, Roger Bannister, I believe his name is. He was able to run this 4-minute mile. And everyone before this mile said, you can't do it. It's impossible, right? And sure enough, he did it. And everyone else can do it after. So in a sense, a superpower can be the same thing, right? Of course, we're not talking about flying and X-ray vision and heat vision and super strength. But yet we can look at cases. For example, there's a mom years ago now who lifted a car when she had to save her babies. Most men can't even lift, tire, let alone a car today. So we have to look at the bigger picture. Men typically are going to be biologically bigger and stronger, but yet this woman was able to do it, right? She gave herself a goal. She knew no limits at that moment. She only knew what she needed to do. protect and save for children, in which he did. Roger Bannister didn't care about the naysayers. He didn't care about the limiting beliefs. He said, I'm going to do it. And he did it. And then everyone saw that it was possible. So in a sense, when one person is able to accomplish something in their life, some people, they love stories of the underdog. We can think of maybe like 50 Cents or something, but rappers that come from nothing, Lil Wayne, and they're able to come up and build something, right? They come from hardship. They come from struggle, but now they're living in luxury, and it's not by accident. They understood something, that they had to be the proponent for their success. And I look back at the past 600 episodes because we just had our group episode, and I think about, how I have structured a podcast, and sure enough, every little bit, we make progress towards something good, hopefully a breakthrough. And that breakthrough can be big or small, because I always say when it comes to life, you can live big or you can live small. And whether you live big or small, it's going to be what you want. Big living can be penthouses, mansions, and yachts. And small living can be, just hanging out with your family in your HOA neighborhood. And if you have an HOA, typically not the most enjoyable sometimes, but it could be beneficial if you like your neighborhood to be nice and pristine. And sure enough, you can just live around people who have the mindset of saying, hey, this is my home. Let me make sure the home is nice and tidy, versus someone saying you need to make sure your house is nice and tidy. It's very different than you saying, I need to do this, versus someone saying you need to do this. Because when it comes to coaching, the podcast, you don't need to do anything you don't want to do. Every episode is an option, whether they be guest episodes or me just kind of chit-chatting about what's going on with mindset or the blogs or whatever's happening in the world. You get to take that with a grain of salt, and you get to say, you know what, I enjoy this take. Or you know what, I didn't enjoy this take. And you get to take it, you get to leave it. You get to make progress, or you get to stay where you are. You get to remain comfortable, or you get to make the choice to get uncomfortable. And I always say, get uncomfortable, right? Get comfortable being uncomfortable. And that's what these next 600 episodes are going to be. They're going to be looking at how you can internalize what is you, or who you are, and who you can become. It might not be an easy road, right? But it's not always about the destination. There's happiness in the struggle. There's happiness in the journey. Many people, they would love for the destination. They would love for the quick fixes. But it's not always about the quickness that brings about the most happiness. It's about building. It's about learning. It's about understanding that things can take time. And when things take time, you can appreciate it so much more. I, for one, would rather wait months or years for something good than for something good just to happen to me, because I wouldn't be able to appreciate it. I know my mind. This happens quite a bit in life. People, they take what they get so quickly for granted, whether it be love or career, health, whatever it is. And we can see health is one of the big ones. It's one of the reasons why physical is number 3 on the list for tapping into your superpower. You need to have a good physical. But yet many people, they take their youth for granted. They just kind of say, I'm young, I can do these things. And all of a sudden they're 30 and they have 40, 50 more years ahead of them. And they're like, I can't even walk up the stairs. I can't even do a jumping jack, or I can't even do a burpee, or I can't even walk down the driveway without running out of breath. And I think, how is that living? How is that life? But then again, everyone's going to choose to live their life the way they want to live, and it's perfectly fine. I think of the question that you can ask yourself, right? And the question is, about money, right? So it's just basically of, if you had to choose $10 million today, and basically the bad part is that you're not going to be able to live tomorrow. So people will say, would you take $10 million today? But the caveat is, or the problem is, you're not going to be able to live tomorrow. So you only have 24 hours left to live. And most people will say, I won't take the money. So we can already tell that people value their life more than $10 million, right? Because if you're going to die tomorrow, then you know for 100% certainty that you say, you know what, I value my life more than I value money. Now, if you're in a negative spot and you answer that question to say, I would rather just take the $10 million and not be here tomorrow, then you have to do some quick fixes on something that's going on, because the human mind is built, is created, is structured to survive, to withstand and withhold adversity and challenges and struggle. If you're cold, you shiver. If you're hungry, you growl. If you're sad, you look for a way out. And when people, they give themselves this mindset that there is no other option, they haven't tapped into their mind yet. They haven't tapped into their superpower. They haven't tapped into what they are able to accomplish. They, meaning not only themselves, but the people that they can hold around them, the people that can be their confidants, the people that can be their supporters. And one of the reasons why coaching is so effective, or mentorship is so effective, is because you have someone there rooting for you and cheering for you and wanting to see you do well. And I know it's always enjoyable, for me at least, when I have, youth coaching and someone who's 18, 19, they come to me and they ask me these questions, and typically as young men, and they say, hey, Mike, I'm dating this girl, or, I'm looking at, the dating scene or whatever. Maybe it could be college, but most of the time it's girls. So they're talking to me about girls, and I just tell them something very simple. I say, listen, it is easy to get a girl. It is easy to go sleep with her. It's easy to go have a kid with her. It's more challenging to find the right girl, because we can allow our urges to get control of us, and we can say, you know what, the first girl that comes my way, or the girl that maybe is the most toxic in my mind that feels good, or maybe the girl that gives me love that I might have never had before feels right. And yet, just because it feels good at the time, it doesn't mean it's going to be good for your lifetime. And I tell people, when you're looking for your soulmate, in a sense, your partner, your husband, your wife, or whoever, you get a good understanding of if they're going to be a good fit for you. Now, if you come from hardship, you're going to be maybe more difficult to love. But then again, you do the work, right? You work on the limiting beliefs, and then you say, you know what type of power do I want to personify going forward? Not only in my relationships, but for the family that maybe I want to create. Your kids are going to look at you as a hero, right? I think of Tom Brady. He was, this is a long time ago now. He was, asked a question of, in an interview of, who was his hero? And he said his father was his hero. And then he, teared up a little bit, because he understood what his father has done for him, sacrificed for him. And it's not only him, it's so many other sports players, so many moms and dads that you might have never heard before. They might even be going to your school, living into the house next door or down the road or in the same town. And these people are literally doing everything they can. But then they might have these limiting beliefs. They might have these ideas that, as much as I will love for something good to happen, it's difficult for me to accept good things to happen for me when I can't even appreciate what I have. It's a difficult concept, because we all want to be superheroes in our own right, the hero's journey in a sense. I like to say I'm the villain, because when I can go against the society's stigmas, it makes it easier for me to do what I want to do. I get to create what I want to create. I get to say what I want to say. I don't have to worry about naysayers. I don't have to worry about, people gossiping or critics. I mean, it doesn't matter to me. You can hate me. You can love me. You can leave me negative reviews. You can leave me positive reviews. The mission continues. The mission is not going to stop. My journey is not going to, come to an abrupt end because someone else has bad intentions for me. What are your intentions for yourself? And I encourage people to check out this blog here, The Power of the Mind, Unlocking Your Inner Superpower. It talks about what we talked about today, but it really focuses on actionable tips for you to utilize today so you can get over some of the things that are in your mind, so you can allow your mind to flourish and be more powerful every single day. The actionable tips, again, are goals, limiting beliefs, your physical prowess, being healthy, your mindfulness idea of, being able to gratitude and being present in the moment, the practice aspect of doing what you need to do and honing your skills. And then, of course, sharing with others what you have learned or what maybe you will love to do. Because sometimes when it comes to dreams and ambitions in life, you might say, I want to start a podcast. I want to do something. And maybe you have a wonderful idea, but then, you don't want to share it because you don't want naysayers to say, that's a stupid idea. That's a silly idea. Why even bother? There's so many podcasts out there already who do what you want to do. But then again, I always say, just because there's so many other options, it doesn't mean that your option is not something that's going to not be viable for someone. Because I understand coaching in session is something where I created not only for myself, but for people who can't afford coaching, for people who are coaches and they want to reach more individuals, because I understand that I am not going to be everyone's cup of tea. And like I said, I do not want to be everyone's cup of tea, because if I am everyone's cup of tea, that means I'm conforming. That means I'm, trying to appease so many people. And I'm, at the end of the day, just making sure I do what I need to do. Make sure that I can lay my head down on the pillow and say, I did what I had to do today. Now, sometimes my words might be harsh. Sometimes my words might hit home. But when you are developing a skill, when you're developing a mind, sometimes adversity can be the best lesson for you to propel yourself so much more quickly. A rocket doesn't just make it to space by fluttering its, wings or whatever they have. No, it's massive fuel, massive propulsion to break through the atmosphere. And that is what we have to do in our life. We have to have the power, the mind, the superpower in a sense, to break through the obstacles, to break through the struggles, to break through the challenges. And for us to say, you know what? If we want to do something amazing, we have to develop the habits. We have to create the disciplines and be consistent in our growth. So we will continue to grow, especially here on Coaching in Session. We are past 600 episodes. We are going to keep on going. I don't even know when we're going to stop, but when it comes to superpower, in a sense, it's going to be always evolving. Maybe one day your superpower is knowledge. Maybe one day is kindness. Maybe one day it's going to be strength. And maybe one day it's going to be understanding and wisdom. And so we are going to give ourselves a plethora of superpowers. We're going to keep on working on ourselves. We're going to keep on working on the person that we were destined to be. And we're not going to allow ourselves to just kind of go to the waysides of life and not take action. So let this be a reminder for you to take action today. Let this be a reminder that there is a power within you that you have not unleashed into the world yet. And when you do, your whole world will change. And then hopefully the people around you, the lives that you can impact will change. Create the ripple effect, create your legacy. Your moment is still waiting for you.